Now to breaking news overnight on a deal to release some of the hostages held by Hamas during a brief ceasefire. Matt Gutman is on the scene for us with the details.
After this, I'm going to cover the Politico article that shows America's real interest in the matter and why they behave in the way that they have been behaving.
Good morning, Matt.
Robin, good morning. We are at a base just outside of the Gaza Strip. You may be able to see the smoke over those tanks. Israel continues to hit positions even as that ceasefire nears that hostage deal being brokered. Israel to get at least 40, possibly more hostages back as early as tomorrow. This morning, roughly 50 hostages held by Hamas and other militant groups are set to be released from Gaza. Hamas and Israel finally agreeing on the deal, officially approved by the Israeli government overnight. That release would include around 30 children and some women. In exchange, Israel has agreed to release 150 Palestinian prisoners, women, and teenagers. The exchange set to happen over the course of a 4-day pause in the hostilities, the first in over 6 weeks. Hamas says the ceasefire will allow hundreds of trucks of humanitarian relief, medical aid, and fuel to enter most parts of the Gaza Strip amid a deepening humanitarian crisis there. U.S. officials say 3 of the hostages set to be released are Americans. 3-year-old Abigail Moore Edan expected to be among them.
Until we actually see Abigail and other children come out of Gaza, I really don't think I will let myself really believe that she's free.
Abigail's parents killed when Hamas terrorists stormed Kibbutz Kfar Aza on October 7th. She was in her father's arms when he was shot dead. Her birthday this Friday.
We all pray that Abigail will actually be home to celebrate her 4th birthday.
Throughout the negotiations, which were brokered by Qatar, President Biden was in constant contact with Prime Minister Netanyahu. But Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu making clear that a temporary truce does not mean the war will stop. Israel saying it will continue the war until it eliminates Hamas and brings all the hostages home. For weeks, families have been demanding that the Israeli government prioritize the return of hostages. Outside the Israeli War Cabinet building Tuesday, loved ones waited in agony as Israeli officials debated the deal for hours. Hadass Calderon hoping that her children will be among those released.
I fight for this deal, but
Israeli hostages versus Palestinian prisoners? Yeah, 100%, by the way. That dynamic is actually really important. I'm glad you caught that. So I briefly mentioned this last night, but there's 2 different ways that Israel can apprehend people that are Palestinian, okay? We've talked about the different types of IDs, the different types of identification, and the amenities that you get in both Israel proper or in the occupied territories, whether it be Gaza or the West Bank. Obviously, Palestinian citizens of Israel have the highest, after Jewish citizens of Israel, the highest amenities. They are under the civil structure. They go to the regular courts. Obviously, there's a tremendous amount of racism against them, and they don't have all of the same full legal rights. However, they are in a much better situation than the Palestinians living in the West Bank or the Palestinians living in Gaza. Now, in Gaza, all of the people that are Gazan Palestinians are apprehended as enemy combatants, military tribunal, and it's a really gruesome process. In the occupied territories of West Bank, the Palestinians that are apprehended can be apprehended under indefinite detainment, and the structure is pretty similar. It's still a military court. There's still no civil court process, and they can be indefinitely detained with secret evidence. Children, hundreds of them, have been indefinitely detained. I'll show you real quick. I'm going to give you the article. What's my take on the deal? It's a good first step, and it could have happened weeks ago. It's the same exact deal. It's a good first step, and it's the same exact deal that could have happened weeks ago, but Netanyahu kept wanting to pummel Gaza to satisfy his bloodthirsty urges. It's really fucked up. Hold on. I'm going to show you. So here, this is an Al Jazeera article that covers it a little bit as well. Good time to remind people that Israel doubled its hostages under indefinite detention where the conditions are gruesome immediately after October 7. These are mostly civilians who were arrested over secret evidence and held under openly torturous conditions by an occupying force. Israel doubled its number of Palestinian prisoners to 10,000 in 2 weeks. Since October 7, Israel's arrested 4,000 laborers from Gaza and more than 1,000 people in the occupied West Bank, Palestinian officials say, including children. Prisoners are subjected to starvation and thirst. They are prevented from accessing their medicine, specifically for those suffering from chronic illnesses that require regular medication. Adding that matters became worse when the prisoner administration cut off water and electricity. Adamir, also reported, this is the Palestinian prisoner civil rights group, Adamir, also reported the prevention of the access to medical care. This is an Al Jazeera article for those of you who are wondering. I'll cover the article really quickly. They also shut down the prison clinics. They also prevented prisoners from going to hospitals and external clinics despite the presence of some cancer patients among the prisoners who require continuous treatment, said the rights group. They also shut off access to a canteen where you can buy like toothpaste and other amenities. During periods of calm, under Israel's 56-year military occupation, 15 to 20 people are arrested on a daily basis, which is an insane number. But since October 7th, the daily arrest rate of Palestinians in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem has gone up to 120 people, according to Palestinian officials. This is done under administrative detention. The unlawful combatants law is the equivalent of administrative detention in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. The unlawful combatants law is the one utilized in Gaza. The administrative detention is the one utilized in occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, which allows Israel to hold Palestinians from those areas indefinitely under secret evidence. Most of the 1,070 people arrested in those areas since October 7 are being transferred to administrative detention, Francis said. They are signing off on dozens of administrative detention orders every day. Some of these people, by the way, some of these scalps that they basically collect, oh, by the way, hundreds of people have died under these gruesome conditions. Where is the proof? Where is the proof that thousands of people are detained in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem under secret evidence? Or do you mean where's the proof of their wrongdoing? Is there proof of those numbers? Why were they detained? There is, as a matter of fact. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Israeli human rights groups document this alongside Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. It is an apartheid regime, after all, so this kind of racist nonsense happens quite frequently. But if you don't want to take my word for it, perhaps you can take the word of, like I said, B'Tselem. B'Tselem has statistics on this. Hold on. Let me give you the B'Tselem numbers for you so you can maybe shed yourself of the weird skepticism that you have. Like, don't take my word for it. Administrative detention is the incarceration without trial or charge, alleging that a person plans to commit a future offense. It has no time limit, and the evidence on which it is based is not disclosed. Israel employs this measure extensively and routinely and has used it to hold thousands of Palestinians for lengthy periods of time. Here's another B'Tselem article on minors in Israeli custody. While detention orders are formally reviewed, this is merely a semblance of judicial oversight, as detainees cannot reasonably mount a defense against undisclosed allegations. By the way, this is not in a civil court structure. This is a military court as well. Nevertheless, courts uphold the vast majority of orders. I believe 97.5% are upheld. A lot of men, women, and children, elderly. It's just kidnapping. It's legalese for kidnapping. I get why people are saying that the 150 hostages that Israel will be releasing are actually terrorists. How do they justify releasing terrorists while in the midst of a war on terror? Because they're not terrorists. There's only one person who, I believe, and I looked through the list, there's only one person in that list that actually attempted to shoot someone. Beyond that, it's mostly women and children. And I don't know why they tried to put that name in there anyway. I assume they put it in there as bait to be like, look, we're actually they're making us release terrorists or some shit like that. Regarding who's been released, Israel's Justice Ministry has released a list of the Palestinian prisoners who are expected to be released as part of the deal with Hamas. The list has 300 names, though only 150 will be released at the first stage. None of them have been convicted of murder, some convicted of attempted murder and aggravated assault. By the way, that's a really interesting way to massage that narrative, but it's fine. There's only, I believe, one person who was convicted of attempted murder. Others convicted of more minor offenses, such as contact with an outlaw group, setting off an explosive, stone throwing, and arson. Here is the article I was reading from earlier. Since October 7th, Israel has arrested 4,000 laborers from Gaza and more than 1,000 people in the occupied West Bank, Palestinian officials say. Ramallah, occupied West Bank. Israel has arrested so many Palestinians in the last 2 weeks since the start of its bombardment of the besieged Gaza Strip that it has doubled the number of Palestinians in its custody. They did this because they are holding them hostage. Okay? They're holding them hostage. There is no reason that they even have to give to hold these people hostage. They do it under secret evidence. Dangerous prison conditions. At a press conference on Thursday afternoon in Ramallah, head of the Palestinian Authority's Commission for Detainees Affairs, Qadur Affairs, said recent developments regarding prisoners are unprecedented and dangerous. We hesitated a lot about holding this press conference addressing yet another chapter of Israeli crimes on what our male and female prisoners are being exposed to in the occupation's prisons for fear of creating tension and anxiety among the families of prisoners and our Palestinian people in general. Prisoners are subjected to starvation and thirst. They are prevented from accessing their medicine, specifically for those suffering from chronic illnesses that require regular medication. Adding that matters became worse when the prisoner administration cut off water and electricity. Adamir also reported the prevention of access to medical care. They shut down the prison clinics and also prevented prisoners from going to hospitals and external clinics. They also shut down the water and electricity for a brief moment in time as well. The most dangerous thing over the past few days was the physical attacks and degrading treatment. Everyone who was arrested is assaulted. Many of the prisoners have had their limbs, hands, and legs broken. Degrading and insulting expressions, insults, cursing, tying them with their handcuffs to the back, and tightening them at the end to the point of causing severe pain, naked, humiliating, and group search of the prisoners, he said. Aside from the 4,000 residents of Gaza Strip, most of whom are held at the Detention military camp, about 6,000 Palestinians are imprisoned in the Israeli jails and detention centers. The 5,200 jailed before October 7 are largely residents of the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. But in the past 2 weeks, the Israeli army has arrested another 1,070 Palestinians during overnight military raids in those areas. During periods of calm, as I read earlier, under the Israeli occupation for the past 56 years, 15 to 20 people were arrested on a daily basis for crimes that range from stone throwing or even crimes that range from stone throwing to being suspicious. Under, once again, secret evidence. They do not reveal what evidence there is. But since October 7th, daily, the arrest rate of Palestinians in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem has gone up to 120 people, according to the Palestinian officials. The arrests take place through surprise military raids on Palestinian homes at dawn, humiliating searches of family members in their homes, destruction of property and belongings, as well as verbal and physical abuse. Do you guys have that video of the Israeli occupying force personally berating? I'm from Israel. Most of the info I get is of my side. That's why I'm trying to explore. Thanks for explaining your statement. For sure, I will look for more info about it. I wonder if that guy is still in here or if he left. The recent videos that came out from the occupied West Bank of female Palestinians being like apprehended. Francis said that the Palestinians being held inside of Israeli prisons and detention centers are cut off from the world. There's no yard time, no contact with their families, no family visits, and no regular lawyer visits, she explained. Israeli authorities have also shut off access to canteens, which are necessary to buy basic supplies such as toothpaste, and limited meals to 2 a day instead of 3. The Israeli parliament on Wednesday approved the plan, currently effective for 3 months, allowing the reduction of the minimum living space allotted to each prisoner, previously set at 3.5 square meters, to accommodate a rising crush of prisoners. In a press conference by Palestinian civil rights groups on Tuesday in Ramallah, Adamir called on the International Committee of Red Cross to abide by its responsibilities as the sole authorized international organization monitoring the situation of Palestinian detainees, and called on the group to visit them, particularly those from Gaza in military camps.
That are right beneath that hospital. I can tell you that they appear to be well made. There is electricity, lights, bathrooms, even sleeping quarters with air conditioning inside.
A lot of back and forth going on with respect to the hostage swap that is going to happen. The ceasefire is slated to begin on Thursday, and it will continue potentially for 10 days as long as Hamas and other Palestinian militias are continuously trickling out other hostages. There are some conditions on this ceasefire, like not having any aerial support throughout certain times of the day for surveillance purposes.
Correspondent and moderator of Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan, has closely followed the negotiations and joins us now. Margaret, good morning.
Good morning to you, Vlad.
Based on your reporting, Margaret, what can you tell us about how this deal came about?
Vlad, this was a very small group of negotiators over the past 7 weeks. It's been really intense pressure being exerted here. The U.S. was talking to Israel's leaders, its intelligence agency, and it was Qatar that was the conduit to Hamas. Egyptian intelligence also helped. So together, they put pressure on Hamas to provide proof of life for the 50 civilians expected.
This is crazy to be like, yeah, they're the ones who fucking put pressure. Like, what do you mean? I'm sorry. I mean, there's definitely a lot of fucking, I'm sure there's a lot of reactionary assholes in the Hamas command structure too. But they've been trying to get this fucking deal off the ground for weeks at this point. And it is the identical deal as far as I understand. I might be wrong on it, but everything I've seen is that this deal that finally came to be is the identical deal that could have happened fucking weeks ago.
To be first released, and then they got Israel to agree to allow in cooking oil and fuel for hospital generators to run and to release those Palestinian women and children from detention centers, and then both sides to halt fighting for these short-term ceasefire.
Does anyone have the Politico article? Because I want to cover the Politico article where the branding camp basically openly admits. The branding camp basically openly fucking admits that the hostage negotiations were halted, and there were concerns on the ceasefire. Okay, there were concerns on the ceasefire that like people will see the casualty numbers. Biden and admin officials see proof their strategy is working on a hostage deal. So, couple things that I want to mention on the hostage deal. Okay, thank you. Couple things I want to mention on the hostage deal. Number one. For weeks and weeks and weeks, they said Hamas are barbaric Nazi terrorists that are identical to ISIS that you cannot negotiate with. Now, all of a sudden, they are capable of negotiating with them. So which one was it? Were they barbaric terrorists that are simply interested in being anti-Semitic? Or did they actually have demands? Their actions might be violent, and they certainly were on October 7th, okay? And acts of terror, for sure. Having said that, did they have like a rational perspective beyond that? Or was it simply, or were people constantly telling you that these guys were ISIS and there was no reason to try and deal with them, and the only way to deal with them was by bombing the shit out of Gaza and killing every fucking Palestinian child you could get your hands on? All of a sudden now, oh yeah, there is a negotiations process. Now, here's what's important. I thought that a ceasefire could not have happened. For weeks, Genocide Joe said, ceasefire, no way, Jose. Don't. That's anti-Semitic. That allows Hamas to win. And all of a sudden now, the ceasefire has come. And now they're going to try and take fucking credit for it, okay? And all of the dumbass Biden dick riders on Twitter are going to go, dude, our statesman, our elderly statesman, he did it. We did it, Joe. Kamala Harris style. Oh, we did it, Joe. Where was this energy on October 8th? Everybody knew what was going to happen. Are you going to read the article? Yes, I am. Some officials say the agreement is a vindication, while others insist it was just a necessary move at this point in the war. Some of the Brandon administration officials quietly say the hostage exchange agreement is the clearest signal yet its strategy towards the Israel-Hamas war is working. Okay. Under the breakthrough deal, 50 women and children will be released by Hamas in exchange for 150 Palestinian prisoners. Women and teenagers were held by Israelis. 4 to 5 day pause will allow them safer transfer and ease of delivery of life-saving aid to suffering Palestinians in Gaza. Amid so much wreckage and chaos, the hostage deal, which was finalized late Tuesday, might prove a rare bright spot in a dark time. 3 U.S. administration officials said there's no explicit victory lap to take, as around 200 hostages will stay behind in Hamas's grasp. And it would be uncouth to celebrate any win after Hamas killed 1,200 people on October 7th, leading Israel to forcefully respond with a military campaign that Hamas-led health ministries claim killed more than 13,000 people. Negotiations need to take place for the sake of the hostages, not because Hamas isn't barbaric. Negotiations needed to happen literally on October 8th, but they didn't happen because Israel wanted to engage in a endless bombing campaign and a forcible occupation. A bombing campaign that ended up probably killing a shit ton of hostages themselves, 2 of which Israel has already confirmed. But I'll suggest that President Joe Biden shouldn't shy away from what the policy has accomplished to date. It's vindication, said one of the officials earlier Tuesday before the deal was finalized, but there's more to do. Increasing demands from progressive-minded Democrats for a ceasefire and an end to support Israel's retaliation fell on deaf ears in the White House. Biden and his team repeated again and again that the only way to make the meaningful humanitarian progress was a hostage deal to cool passions and temporarily stop bombs from falling throughout the enclave. And for the record, after Joseph Lifshitz, you know they're not going to let any of those hostages actually talk to international media before doing some press, before doing some PR coaching. That was a major flub for Israeli PR. Having a 85-year-old peacenik from one of the kibbutzim that was attacked by Hamas, turning around and being like, yeah, actually, these guys treated me well and took care of me. And also on top of that, were not the barbarians that you claimed that they were. Because why the fuck would they be, by the way? Even if they are fucking barbarians, why would they treat the hostages as barbaric monsters in that situation? They want to make sure that they stay alive. It's their fucking chip. It's their bargaining chip. Why would they kill the hostages if they literally fucking took the time out to kidnap them? So stupid. The deal may still fall apart with U.S. officials insisting nothing is really final until hostages are brought home and the guns go silent. Still on the verge of the administration's biggest diplomatic victory in the conflict, questions are swirling internally about how much credit Biden's approach deserves. Another 3 administration officials, including one senior official during an on-record interview, said that working to secure the release of hostages and pause the fighting for 4 or 5 days was simply necessary as Israel's retaliation against Hamas for the October 7 attacks has devastated Gaza and sparked a humanitarian crisis. It's not a question of vindication of strategy, said David Satterfield, the U.S. lead on humanitarian issues in Israel, Gaza, war, during a live Tuesday interview with Al Monitor. It's the right and necessary thing to do. All the officials were granted anonymity to discuss sensitive internal discussions and state negotiations. On Tuesday morning, Biden said nothing is done until it's done, adding that he'd spoken recently to Netanyahu, as well as the Emir of Qatar. But things are looking good at the moment. The hostage talks have been complicated at times by the sheer range of parties involved, including Israel, Hamas, Qatar, and the U.S., as well as various outside groups that tap their own diplomatic channels, said one former U.S. official familiar with the discussions. The large number of hostages who range in nationality and age, and some that need pressing medical needs, added another tricky variable to the mix. Hostage negotiations are always challenging, the former official said. This one has been very complex. But the administration remains wary about Netanyahu's endgame. Oh, here. Biden administration insists that Israel has no obligation to defend itself, but should minimize civilian harm in the process. Over recent weeks, the U.S. worked to get 108 trucks a day into Gaza from Egypt and is in touch with humanitarian groups on how to further alleviate the suffering of Palestinians in the enclave. Here's a separate Politico scoop that came out yesterday. The United States of America offered intelligence to the Israeli Air Force and the Israeli Defense Forces on where these humanitarian aid groups were operating inside of the Gaza Strip. Israel responded by bombing them. So just want to make one other thing clear. There's another Politico scoop and another Politico article. Now, what you might be asking yourself, why is American media also... Oh, here, this is what I was going to show you exactly. Here it is. Without reading, see if you can guess what the IDF did with that location data. U.S. has sent Israel data on aid groups' locations to try to prevent strikes. Among the sites provided to the Israeli government are medical facilities, including Al-Shifa Hospital, which Israeli forces raided last week. The information included GPS coordinates of a number of medical facilities and information on movements of aid groups in Gaza to the Israeli government for at least a month, according to 3 people familiar with the communications. All were granted anonymity because they feared speaking publicly would make it more difficult for aid groups to operate in Gaza. Still, Israel has launched operations against Hamas in or near aid sites, including hospitals, leading to the destruction of buildings and the blockings of fuel and other critical supplies. It's unclear if the U.S. has compiled a formal no-strike list or if it's just providing one-off guidance. But officials have helped transmit coordinates to groups that provide food and medical care in Gaza and operate out of hospitals, smaller offices, and live in guest houses. Among sites provided to the Israeli government are medical facilities, including Al-Shifa Hospital, parts of which Israeli forces took over on November 15th. In public statements, U.S. officials have stressed that aid groups are struggling to operate in the Gaza Strip because of Hamas, noting that the militant group uses civilians as human shields and operates tunnels underneath hospitals.
We do have some...
Yeah, a month ago, Hamas officials were talking about how they were willing to release all civilian hostages if the bombings stop. This was literally on October 17th.
We do have some more
October 17th, 2023. Bro, they killed 1,200 people. Okay, there it is. Law, you think they're just going to stop? I love this argument. Bro, they killed 1,200 people. Okay, Israel killed 13,000 people in retaliation. So should all the hostages get murdered by Hamas? Would that be valid? Do you think it's valid for Hamas to just now openly, on television, film the execution of the 230 hostages that they have? 13,000 Palestinians have died. They've been killed by the relentless bombing campaign. I hope not at all. Then why do you think Israel should have one genocide chip? You know what I mean? 1,200 people were killed. So that means Israel can do a little bit of genocide. Come on. Try to think about it. Chatters, don't yell at this person, okay? Oh, here, by the way, here's what Biden was saying.
What are the chances of a Gaza ceasefire?
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. He said none, no possibility. Breaking reports that an Israeli airstrike in Lebanon has killed 6 Hezbollah members, including the son of Mohammed Ra'ad, the head of Hezbollah's parliamentary bloc, according to Lebanese sources, by the way. Where were we? Oh, here's the ceasefire is actually Biden's doing argument. And it is Biden's doing, for sure. Like, there is pressure from the American government. The annoying part is that the American government gave no red lines time and time again, and now they're going to fucking gaslight us into believing that they were actually peaceniks behind the scene, desperately trying to fucking cultivate a ceasefire against a relentless Netanyahu administration that just did not want to listen to him. And the reality is much more dire. America could have forced a ceasefire the first day. After all, It wasn't Kirby, but Anthony Blinken, who tweeted after talking to Hakan Fidan, the Turkish foreign minister, on October 8th that there should be a ceasefire immediately. A tweet that he deleted. The National Security Council pointed, here. It could be that Biden administration is trying behind the scenes, but they probably aren't getting anywhere. When the Israelis feel that they're in an existential threat situation, the amount of American leverage drops, said Robert Ford, a former U.S. diplomat, Saul Babajim, who served extensively in the Middle East, including under President Barack Obama. I wonder if this guy has also said some Islamophobic-ass bullshit. On Tuesday, U.S. officials announced a deal between Israel and Hamas for release of hostages, and pause in the fighting was imminent, but such a pause would likely only take effect for a few days, and Israel has given no indication it would adjust its targeting on sites afterwards. Like, this is insane. Everyone keeps saying, no, we're going to be extra ruthless. We're going to be extra ruthless. We're going to keep bombing super hard after it's all is said and done. Those who work for aid groups in the region say Israel is deserting practices it has used previously to protect humanitarian groups. There's really no justification for the lack of functioning deconfliction. Oh, this is the other article. I'm looking at the wrong article. Sorry. That's the article that shows that America's been providing data to Israel and Israel keeps targeting them. But the administration remains wary about Netanyahu's endgame and seeming lack of plan of what to do once Hamas is defeated. There was no sense that the pause would turn into a lengthier ceasefire, senior administration official said. And there was some concern, and this is the most damning part of this article, there was some concern in the administration about an unintended consequence of the pause, that it would allow journalists broader access to Gaza and the opportunity to further illuminate the devastation there and turn public opinion on Israel. From day one, they've said the Israeli government has no plans on what to do with Gaza once they're done with their bloodthirsty, monstrous bombing campaigns. And the American government has kept trying to restrain them while simultaneously saying no red lines, no ceasefire. And I've told you time and time again that this was not a moral consideration, America saying use smaller bombs or maybe do some humanitarian pauses. It has nothing to do with morality. It doesn't even have anything to do with, it doesn't have anything to do with how normal human beings would act or react to a situation like this, and everything to do with PR. As I said here in this tweet, since day one, the U.S. calls for restraint weren't about the morality of collective punishment, but simply the PR disaster it would create for Israel and the U.S. This is why they pushed for using smaller bombs and humanitarian pauses, as they quietly kept sending more munitions. Israel is unlikely to ramp down its military operation in Gaza. When the temporary pause ends, experts say, Israeli officials have vowed to continue the offensive until it destroys Hamas, arguing in some cases that the campaign from the enclaves north to the south helped the hostage negotiations by making a halt more attractive. It's not true. A month ago, Hamas said that they wanted a fucking ceasefire. And a month ago, when Hamas said that, remember what the American State Department and the Israeli government said? We do not want to temporarily cease fire in exchange for hostages. Hamas is simply drip-feeding hostages to us one at a time every single day to try to implement a ceasefire that goes against our better interests. The ceasefire only happened, and the hostage negotiation only happened because the family members of the hostages in Israel have been endlessly campaigning for it since October 8th. That's why it fucking happened. And America could have stopped it at any point. What is this? Pro-Israel student group Hillel posted I Love Hamas stickers around the University of British Columbia campus and falsely attributed them to a pro-Palestine student group. Hillel BC says independent contractor distributed offensive stickers on campus. Update, the person who posted the I Love stickers at the UBC and falsely attributed to a pro-Palestine group was associated with Hillel. Hillel claims it has since terminated its relationship with the contractor. But who was it? Typical, blacks rule shit. Typical. Always. So just wanted to give you guys all of that and have you, develop a little bit more of a better understanding of the situation. But let's continue.
Ceasefires that could last 4 days or more. Now, we have come close on at least two occasions, once at the end of October and a few weeks ago. But this is the very first time both sides have publicly agreed to the terms. To help close this deal, President Biden also picked up the phone himself.
And so, Margaret, what do the phases of this deal entail?
Well, each day, both sides have to take some steps. So once the official halt to fighting is underway, Hamas is expected to begin releasing women and children. First, at least 3 Americans in this first phase. As I said, they've provided proof of life for at least 50, but it is believed by the U.S. that Hamas could potentially release more civilians. Those men and foreign passport holders and soldiers would be in later phases. So Hamas has an incentive to continue releasing people because the halt to fighting will be rolled over, extended each time. Israel said for every 10 hostages, one more day of ceasefire. And for every hostage they release, Israel will release more Palestinian prisoners. So last night, Qatar said that number of prisoners will be increased in later stages.
So I guess, Margaret, after the negotiated
they're not Americans, they're
period of
dual
time,
nationals,
which could be extended, do you expect that there will be a full resumption of Israeli strikes once all the hostages are returned?
Well, Israel's prime minister said the war's not over, so he's signaling the potential full resumption. And it has been one of Israel's concerns that in any kind of pause, Hamas could regroup. But this cessation of violence, the diplomacy around it, could provide some diplomatic opportunity. Big picture, the Biden administration has been pressing.
The thing is, the people that don't want diplomacy in this situation aren't the barbaric rapist hordes of terrorists in Hamas. Okay? I know that is how people have structured this argument because it's one that benefits Israel's psychotic bombing campaign in Gaza. For those of you who are at least racist enough to believe that, like, you can kill every Palestinian because of the actions of Palestinian militants on October 7, right? But ultimately, the people fucking up the negotiations process haven't been Hamas. It's always been Israel. And for the record, people that Israel is releasing are also hostages. Because they are the state and because they are America's ally, nobody considers them to be hostages and everybody says they're prisoners. They're fucking hostages too. And that is precisely the reason why I gave you the background. So you understand the conditions in which these people are being held, the Palestinians. And also, so you have develop a better understanding on the false bullshit, that the secret evidence that is used to apprehend them.
And the surrounding Arab countries to help plan for a day after Hamas's collapse, including who will govern the 2 million Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip.
Margaret Brennan tirelessly working her sources the last couple of days.
Do you have proof on it being Israel that ruins peace talks? I always see the argument on places like Twitter, but that it's always Hamas/Palestine's fault for everything, and would like to have something to just shut them up. I mean, look to what I showed you. On the 17th of October, Hamas said that they wanted to do ceasefires and release hostages. That was 10 days after October 7th. Why didn't it happen? Hamas time and time again since then openly stated that, they wanted the bombs to stop. Sorry. Hamas said time and time again openly that they would release hostages one at a time every single day in order to trigger a forcible ceasefire, okay? In order to trigger a ceasefire on the Israeli front purely from the logistics of releasing the hostages, because you can't release the hostages even if you want to when there's an endless bombing campaign that could potentially kill them. Israel recognized that and said, no, we will not let Hamas take advantage of ceasefire deal. We will not let Hamas force the conditions of a ceasefire by using hostages. Gilad Erdogan says some more on his today. Oh, I love him. Picture. My favorite, dude. Oh, my favorite fucking psychopath at the UN. Still shamelessly wearing the fucking Star of David, too. The Never Again Star of David. That shit is so crazy, dude. I don't know how any Jewish person looks at that and doesn't immediately fucking feel disgust in their heart. What a psychopathic way to literally undermine the Holocaust, the atrocities of the Holocaust, to so cynically weaponize and invoke the Holocaust to say it is literally, like, I mean, I'm not Jewish and I fucking am disgusted, but I'm saying, like, especially as a Jewish person, like, how the fuck do you look at this and go, this is not despicable behavior? That if you don't believe me when I say UN workers, World Health Organization, and like UNRWA workers and hospital workers are all Hamas terrorists that deserve death is akin to my own personal Holocaust. Not letting me kill 6,000 children is my own personal Holocaust is insane. Shame on this motherfucker. Which, by the way, in the midst of this song and dance, he also literally went to Texas to an evangelical's congregation, an evangelical pastor that is a fucking Holocaust revisionist himself. So you know his ass is familiar with Holocaust revisionism. After all, Benjamin Netanyahu is a famous Holocaust revisionist.
This is Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas. And the child he is holding is a victim of UNICEF's indifference. Executive Director Russell, have you never seen this picture? Are you unaware of the terror summer camps that Hamas runs every year in Gaza to indoctrinate children to murder? So many Gazan children were born into a culture of hate. How many UNICEF reports have been written on this?
This is so funny. Because, dog, they don't need to be indoctrinated at fucking summer camp, you fucking idiot. You're killing their parents at a rapid clip. The idea that, like, Palestinians that I am calling dogs and subhuman and exploding on a regular basis have to go to school to learn how to hate me is insane. They hate you, and they have every right to hate you. We here in the Western world cannot comprehend this. Okay? We literally cannot comprehend this. Like, can you imagine? Your world is shit. Everything you know is death and destruction. You don't have PTSD, you have permanent. There's no post-traumatic stress disorder because the trauma never ends. There's a whole different classification for you. Okay? And these dumb motherfuckers are running around going, it is CRT. They are saying critical race terrorism. They are teaching their children to be terror babies. CRT. Really, dude? It's CRT? It's terror camp? That's what fucking causes them to be full of hate towards you? Or is it the fact that you're fucking killing their entire lineage, dude? It's pure projection.